Well, hello, everybody. It's good to be with you today. Happy 2 days post-tax deadline. This will be episode number 80 of our Light Bulb Moment series, Financial Roundtable, offered by Qnity. We all have a money story. I don't know what your money story is, but hopefully it's going to be a bigger and a better story after today. We're here to help you not only create great financial success, but also do what you love and have a quality of life, going from complicated, overwhelming, and confusing to a more simpler path using the new rules, which is simple, visual, and actionable. We know that your ATM is precious, your attention, time, and money. And so we sincerely thank you for spending your precious time and attention with us today. No money required. Past recordings of the Light Bulb Moments Roundtable is on YouTube, also on our Plan for Profits portal. We have merged schools and salons. Great move. It's one ecosystem. Why not be in the same conversation? This week's, that's an error. It should be last week's guest was Jan Arnold. Jan was a great guest. Such enthusiasm and passion and such a contribution in the professional beauty industry, along with Tate Holland, who also was our guest last week. And really what we covered was a couple of areas of the business that are often overlooked and underutilized, which we're going to continue that theme today with our guest, who I'll get to in a little bit. But it was a great session last week, and we welcome them to the Brain Trust this week. We will be welcoming the one and only Robert Reed from Ergo Research. We'll be getting to Robert in about 5-10 minutes here. Great shot of Robert there. Great guy, industry contributor, dear friend, and we can't wait to share Robert with you. Light bulb moments. We hope you have some light bulb moments today. Speaking of light bulb moments, we have our first light bulb moments celebration May 15th in Scottsdale. If you haven't heard about it, perhaps you've been asleep, because we've been talking about it quite a bit. Enrollment's great, and we definitely want you there to celebrate members of our Brain Trust and how we as a community work together over the last 2 years. The Phil Conference is coming up. It is 25 days away. Oh my gosh, can't wait. If you haven't registered, we will sell out with this event. We do have spots available still, but legit, we will sell out of this event. So please sign up. The Phil will absolutely address core gaps in your business: growth, execution, engagement, leadership, and of course, profitability. We'll also have a special workshop, and we're also providing a book to everybody attending. It's just a great concept, this whole idea, gap in the gain. Too many of us live in the gap. I've been in the gap the last couple of days, to be honest with you. The gap is when you're looking at basically comparing yourself against an ideal or perfection, instead of celebrating progress with science, research, behavioral therapy, etc. All goes to the importance of celebrating wins. Speaking of celebrating wins, I'm talking about small wins. It's going to be a good segue into a concept called Kaizen, which Robert and I both have a passion for. We'll also be going through our impact awards at the event. So you don't want to miss that, and you have an opportunity to fill your bucket. So if you haven't registered, go ahead and do so. All right, so I have some top of minds for you today, okay? And the first top of mind relates to an offer for you, something that we had a member of our community ask us to share with her, our guide to preneurship. What's preneurship? It distinguishes the difference between a solopreneur, entrepreneur, and an entrepreneur. Many businesses have used this to better educate their team, recruits, and members of the professional beauty industry about the power of entrepreneurship, which is the ability to work, have a business within a business. Many feel that that is the sweet spot in the workforce. Obviously, we have many employer-based salons here, and competing for talent today is vital. This is an awesome guide. It lays out entrepreneurship pros and cons, solopreneurship pros and cons, entrepreneurship pros and cons. But it also, I think, does a really good job of communicating better what it means to be an entrepreneur, to have a business within a business. Michelle, if she hasn't already done so, we'll put in the link how to get this guide. It's about 5-6 pages. It's very easy to read. It's very graphical. It's something we want you to take advantage of as a member of our community. We just released this very recently. It's not formally one of Qnity's what we call gray papers, which is our version of a white paper, but it's close to that. All right. I have a plea to our community to please participate in a compensation study. It's a W-2 compensation study. I have talked about it for several weeks, but we are now at D-Day. What we're trying to do is have a better understanding based upon data and information, which is lacking in the salon industry, about what compensation looks like. I am tired of looking at this number. This is the number that is published by the Bureau of Labor Statistics on average earnings for a cosmetologist. It is probably correct from a pure data and technical standpoint, but it doesn't tell the full story. There are a lot of jobs out there where the average compensation is twice this. I'm going to say about twice this, I think, is the reality for many, many members of you that are participating on this call. So who's heard that story? Raise your hand, send something in the chat. And what we want to do is answer one question. How does a career in pro beauty stand from an earnings standpoint? Now, we're putting ourselves out on a limb here by organizing this study. There's a relatively short turnaround time. We want as many of you to participate as possible. So let's change some myths here with some data. Here's an example of one of the submissions in this study. We showed average gross pay is $55,000, which is about double, which is what reported. That's average, by the way. That's average. And this is working on average 25.5 hours a week. Now, if we compare that to other professions, law, plumbing, teaching, being a registered nurse, et cetera, it stacks up pretty nicely, but we need your help to get some data on this. So if you've got something to participate in the study, you will have something, and I'm going to go through this very quickly. This is part of what you will get. You get a template spreadsheet. Just enter the data directly from your payroll records. It should not take you very long. And we have this full guide with instructions that takes you step by step what to do. It's just from the W-2s, tips wherever they're reported, or if they're reported, we don't care. What we want to do is just have, this is not a tip audit. This is an opportunity to just get actual data that's verifiable and accurate, so we can take a look at least from an employer-based salon standpoint, what a true picture of earnings would be. So we go through, we have all of this is laid out for you. It's a Google Drive template. You take stuff directly from the W-2s, you enter. We put a lot of time developing this template and these instructions and all that. So we hope you'll be part of this. Several of you have sent emails that you want to be part of it. Check your email box because we would have invited you. Otherwise, please, we encourage you to be part of this study. Michelle can send you a chat how to do it. All right. My top of mind number 2, it's going to be a segue into the conversation I have with Robert here. But, you know, I have a quote that I repeat all the time, and it's money isn't the most important thing in life, but it's reasonably close to oxygen on the gotta have it scale. It's almost a theme for us because we know that money is not the most important thing for most of us, including members of our team, including those that we recruit. And but at the end of the day, it really is like oxygen. And the amount of stress and the amount of angst that goes from money issues. Aaron has shared several statistics out there on, I think it's 73% of Americans report money is their number one stressor. People living paycheck to paycheck, et cetera. So it's a balance of honoring people that love their craft and understanding that, yes, money's not the most important thing, but we need to address it. So this is probably one of my favorite quotes because it tells kind of a full story. But here's my second favorite quote, and I haven't talked about this before. And it's this: if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, Give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. Wow. So we're in the tools business. We create grid-based tools, and grid-based tools to help solve problems such as execution, staff engagement, tracking of results. And I wanted to be an architect, I thought, but ended up being an accountant. And I guess I'm a little bit of an architect and a little bit of an accountant, because architecture is about building grids and building grids to create great design. And so to a great degree, that's what we do. Now, why am I talking about this? Number one, Robert's in the tools business, a very different type of tool. So it's a good segue into Robert in a moment here. And it's also a good segue into what's going to happen at the Phil. We are going to be introducing some new tools. We're also going to be going deeper into several of our visual thinking tools and tying them together. So our workshops are going to be all very tools driven, because, and it's not that the tool doesn't do the work for you. What the tool does is it forces you to think and make decisions by virtue of what you're being inspired to do with the tool, And that's why tactile learning is still so important, because of the connection of the hand and the brain. So anyway, I'm super excited that we'll be able to go deeper into several of our tools, the 8 seasons, the inner circle, some of our tracking tools, including some new tools for members of our community. So you're going to love it. And tools will be in all of our workshop. All right, so enough of me. And now let's bring Robert to the screen, and let's get you off mute. Robert, how are you today?
Good, but now I can't see my screen to allow you to see my, oh, I see. Hold on one second.
All right.
I have a request.
So we'll let you get reset up there, and let's get him to turn his camera back on here. He's got a great picture, so if we don't get that, we've got this too, okay? There you are. All right. Robert, good morning. How are you?
Hey, good morning. I'm fantastic.
You are up early today.
Yes. I had a good friend of mine out from New York to help me celebrate my birthday this past weekend. And with that celebration wrapping up, I'm glad to start getting ready for the Phil.
All right. Well, perfect. Robert, did I hear you right that you've been in 35,000 salons?
Well, in the course of my career, it's always been spent learning how to serve hairdressers. I had the great fortune of being selected by Vidal to join him in the late 70s as his youngest vice president. And one of the reasons was he felt I had a good understanding of what hairdressers needed. I have always sought to really serve the hairdresser by observing, asking questions, and then putting what I learn, what I hear from them into the development of tools for them.
As it relates to tools, we should get to a little bit more about who you are in your business. So you're from Ergo Research, and you are in the tools business. I'm going to let you describe Ergo Research a little bit better than I would, okay?
Well, thanks for that. Firstly, thanks a lot for inviting me to be part of your event today. Being in the salon industry is one of the greatest choices I could have made. It was accidental, but I joined the industry in the early 70s, going to work for an industry icon that some of you may not have ever heard of. His name was Jerry Redding. But I joined his company that was brand new called Germac, and it set me on an understanding that this is the best profession I could have ever selected, even if it was by accident. I have been serving hairdressers since the mid 80s with professional styling tools, first with my presidency and ownership of Hikari, which is a scissor company. And I tell a story about what really set me forth in wanting to understand ergonomics. Ergonomics is simply the relationship between you, your body, your tools, and your workplace. It's everything in a salon, from what you stand on to what you see in the ceiling, how far you reach for something, and how you touch and use those tools. in the late 80s, I was beginning at Hikari to understand that hairdressing was a fantastic career. It takes a lot out of the body and the mind. When you think about standing 8, 10, 12 hours a day sometimes with your arms outstretched, going through different gyrations and elevations and movements of your hand. Some of my friends told me that they were in pain at the end of the day of creating beauty. And this didn't make a lot of sense to me. But as I started to work with some of my key customers and their insurance providers, I understood that a lot of hairdressers physically broke down after a day of work. So I was working with insurance companies like the Fireman's Fund to understand the relationship between tools and bodies. And one of the studies that they presented to me is that there was a profession that had similar physical breakdowns and work loss injuries as in hairdressing. And that was chicken pluckers. I know that sounds funny, but chicken pluckers used tools for cutting all day long. And so we began to study how the hand works. And this led me to want to delve into and understand ergonomics. As I segued into the next step of my career, I founded Ergo Research as a research company to help prevent work loss. And over the course of years, like everyone in every company, we evolved into a styling tool company. And so Ergo Research today is the maker of Ergo styling tools, which you can find on Instagram and Facebook and YouTube under Ergo Styling Tools, and also equally an education company. Because something as simple as a brush may sound simple, but you hold it in your hands 15, 20 minutes for every blow dry. If you do 8 guests a day, that's 2 hours that you're holding this tool. It's 10 hours a week. It's 40 hours a month you actually hold something as simple as a brush in your hand. So it made sense to learn the history of how brushes were used, what materials were used, how people used them, and what the truth was, and how to select materials, modern materials, to make this tool work better than one could have conceived 100 years ago.
Your name does tell it all. So you're really dealing with the health of the professionals. That was first and foremost an inspiration for you, was the actual health of the practitioners doing their craft so they can do it longer, they can do it more comfortably. And, I love when an entrepreneur like you really is driven by impact. Let's talk about economics also for a moment, okay? Because the economics are also favorable, not just to the practitioner, but also to the business owner. And, here's a message to all of you, our audience out there. Last week we had Tate and Jan on there, and they were talking about nails and makeup. We've had Karen Gordon about hair loss. We've had Diana Stevens on highly textured hair. My personal point of view is that in order to be successful in this industry, we have to look at multiple revenue streams. And all of those things I listed are revenue streams that are not captured as much as they could. I don't have my guests on here because they're paid sponsors that pay to be on the roundtable. Robert is going to be at the Phil as a sponsor, which is awesome, but I'm really here to serve the community and remind you that there's parts of the business that are untapped. So, Robert, I wanted to set the stage for our audience on that a little bit, because certainly the tools business is way, way underutilized, and it's a major opportunity that people miss. Is that a fair statement?
Well, I think it is. When we're having a discussion with Michelle yesterday about Kaizen, which is a term I became familiar with as president of Hikari, it's the process of continual improvement. These are small steps or baby steps you take every day. They led us here at Ergo to have the philosophy of, well, what is our standard of excellence? Our standard of excellence is perfection. So everything we do, we ask ourselves, is this the best we could do for our customers? In a salon, the goal is to deliver a service that just wows the guest every single time. But sometimes in delivering that service, we overlook understanding what that guest does at home and to recreate their hairstyle. So we often have discussions about, well, and everyone says, retail is hard for someone to embrace, or having a discussion with a guest is difficult to start. But we must take small steps in trying to understand, what does that guest need from us once they leave the salon or the school to be able to come close to recreating their hairstyle at home? So one of the little steps I'd like to suggest is what I learned early on in our industry when salons and stylists went by their calendar book. You remember that? When we looked at we looked at our book and we said, wow, I'm really booked today. I've got Mrs. Jones coming in. I've got Betty Ross coming in for a haircut, for a perm, whatever it might be. You could see it clearly on the books. But some people taught me that it's not only wise to look at what you're doing today, but to think about what you're doing tomorrow and to prepare for it. I'm a pretty disciplined person. Before I go to bed, I lay out all my clothes for the next day. I know it sounds crazy. It doesn't just save me time in the morning. It saves me the thought of doing that. So with all the technology that we have available today and understanding our guests' history with us, we often don't take a look at, making a small step forward in looking at the schedule for tomorrow to think about, what services are we providing to that guest? What services have we provided to that guest? And what conversations are we going to have with that guest when they visit us that next time? When we think about what our strategy is for each guest, it allows us to develop some talking points. And what we've learned, the audience can learn this today. They can substantiate what I'm about to tell them today when they go out and receive a service from someone else. Because I've learned every woman has a hair story. And whether her hair is beautiful or whether her hair may need some work, she has her own ritual. And she would love to share it with a professional because she endeavors to look her best. So here's what I've learned about discovering what a guest needs to know. While they're in the chair, even before you begin a blow dry, we could ask a guest, we could hand them a brush, for example, and ask them, Michelle, will you show me how you get started with your blow dry at home? Because there's an old expression, let me think if I can even remember it today, it's kind of early here, but seek first to understand, because that allows you to know what that guest needs from you. And when you hand a guest a brush, it fosters them to reveal to you what they're fearful of. And most women are fearful of using a round brush. They don't know how to use it. It's not something a mother teaches their daughter about how to detangle their hair before using a round brush. So if you were to hand a guest a round brush and ask them, will you show me how you get started with your blow dry at home? She will reveal her fears to you with some common responses. She will probably say, I'm not good with those things. And that's a perfect opportunity for a student or a professional to say, well, today I'm going to share with you how to frame your face, or I'm going to share with you how to create more volume in the crown. It provides a perfect teaching opportunity. Second most common response is, that kind of brush gets caught in my hair. Once again, mothers don't teach their daughters how to use a round brush. So it's a perfect opportunity for the student or professional to step up and assume the role of the teacher. This makes the guest feel even more proud they're sitting in the chair, and delivering new information every visit makes them really proud that they've selected that school or salon to receive that service.
You're very good with numbers, and you've been doing this a long time. And when you look at an opportunity for a salon, the tools business, a missed opportunity, clearly we can check the box of better health through the right tools, okay, as a practitioner. Clearly, we can check the box as this being an important point of a service. It's a service to a guest to help them better take care of themselves. Now let's get to the economics. Okay. So, pick a typical size salon. All right. Maybe we'll say it's $1 million of gross revenue. All right. How big of a difference can tools make in that business if properly used as part of from an economic standpoint?
Well, let's ask this one question. What percentage of guests for a school or a salon use a hairbrush at home? It's got to be nearly 100%.
Right.
Then you could ask that same business owner, what percentage of your guests purchase a brush from you? Probably pretty low, because it's not really on the radar. Although the student or the stylist, virtually by using whatever tool or product they're using, are endorsing it already. The guest sees them using it, and they aspire to own everything that their stylist owns, whether it's a handbag or a blouse, a shirt, a jacket. They really want to understand everything about the hairdresser and use everything the hairdresser uses. So it's really a logical thing to have a conversation about, but starting the conversation sometimes is a bit uncomfortable. However, our studies have demonstrated that when there are conversations when they're teaching conversations between the stylist and their guest, by asking them such questions as, will you show me how you get started with your blow dry at home? Or did you know that the #1 cause of color fading is your hair dryer? Or do you know that the #1 cause of scalp dryness is the direction of your nozzle? These types of conversations inspire guests to pay attention and become engaged in something that the stylist is already using. And the culmination of that conversation is normally, is that available for me to take home? Can I buy one of those from you? So in salons that we have a relationship with and we foster these conversations, it's pretty typical for a stylist to deliver a brush every other day or so to their guest. When you extrapolate what that means retail-wise, our most popular brushes retail for $49.95. That means typically most stylists are going to deliver just under $200 worth of brushes every week to their guests. And sometimes it's more. We recently did a program where we had 8 stylists complete the Ergo Art of the Blow Dry, which is our 3-hour deep dive into finishing hands-on. And those 8 stylists over an 8-week period sold $12,000 worth of Ergo brushes.
Wow. These numbers add up quickly. And I want to get to the conversation part of this that a stylist is having with the guest in a moment here, but let's stay with the economics a little bit. So do a little more math for us on the economics. So if a business really embraces and does a fair job, not necessarily top of the class nor bottom of the class, fair job of really making tools a legitimate and relevant part of their retail take-home business. Share some more numbers of what's possible here.
Again, taking a look at maybe a salon that has 8 stylists.
Okay.
8 stylists, if they sold 1 brush every other day, they would sell 10 brushes a month. So for each of those 8 stylists, that's $500. So a salon would sell around $4,000 worth of Ergo a month. That would drop at least $2,000 to the bottom line. And when a salon owner thinks about, well, I must deliver education to my stylists in many different ways to help them develop very successful disciplines, because it's all of your disciplines that add up sequentially to an excellent outcome in the salon. But that kind of money for education is not fallen from the heavens. Mm-hmm. We have to generate it. And this new revenue, this is really low-hanging fruit. is one way for a salon owner to fund most of the education that they would want to provide their staff. Again, that eight stylist salon, retailing $4,000 a month, dropping $2 to the bottom line, delivers $24,000 a year to an educational budget. And that's really a good step forward in building an education budget that can allow you to deliver all those important disciplines to your staff.
Okay, so doing a little math here with you, some basic math. So 8 stylists, about $50,000 a year, right? Of gross revenue.
It would be a little bit less. It'd be somewhere around $24,000.
Of gross revenue?
Yeah, gross revenue.
Okay, all right. Then 16 stylists, we're looking at about $50,000 a year, right?
That'd be about right.
Okay, all right, gotcha. And then, keep multiplying numbers, so if someone has, what would do my math, with 32 people, now we're talking $100,000 business here, right?
Yeah, it's significant. Now, it's interesting to note, we're speaking about a stylist delivering a single brush.
Mm-hmm.
But what we've learned since COVID, since we opened up our consumer store, and again, anyone can view this anytime at ergostylingtools.com, is our most frequent consumer purchase is for 2 brushes or more.
Okay.
Because you need one for detangling. You might need one for gaining more tension at the roots. You might want one for more smoothing, but sometimes we think too small. I think we've all, been guilty of this. But it is really interesting to note that consumers have this pent-up interest in having the tools that their stylists own. The most frequent calls we receive here in our offices are from consumers who had a stylist use one of our brushes on their hair, which deliver visual and textural differences. I mean, we're very proud of our brushes. They're physically different. There's a technology behind them. But a guest can see the difference and feel the difference in their hair. And when that need isn't met, they go out looking. Where can I find that? And we are a direct to salon and direct to cosmetology school brand. You won't find us in a store like an Ulta, but the guest really wants to have the best at home. We just have to ask them the right questions, help them discover the need, create a positive experience, share with them how to use it properly. That's what the guest is looking for.
So your outlet is entirely in the professional market. So you're entirely service professional. You're not direct to consumer.
We are direct to consumer.
Mm-hmm.
You can find us on our website, but we generally would offer all of our products at full suggested retail. The customer pays shipping unless their order is $99 or more. That shipping, a $99 order is pretty inexpensive. So we absorb that. So, Jeff Bezos has forced us to do that.
So let's go back to the conversation part of this that happens behind the chair or at the chair. And if I'm an owner here, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, there's so many things I'm asking my stylist to talk about, and it seems like one more thing I want to get them to do, and obviously it's a very easy and natural conversation, but so is asking for referrals. But rebooking, but yet many people just don't do it. I mean, it just seems like, okay, add this to my list. I'm going to talk about referrals, rebooking, product. I'm going to talk about makeup. I'm going to talk about, other services in our salon. How do you manage that? I mean, it feels overwhelming if I'm at the chair.
Well, I'm sure many of your audience are parents, right? So what we've learned from being a parent is what gets rewarded gets repeated.
Uh-huh.
So if we can foster a conversation that receives a consistent response from the guest, a consistent positive response, such as, will you show me how you get started with your blow dry at home? The guest expresses their fears, the stylist shares with them how to frame their face, how to create more volume, how to detangle their hair. These are conversations that just replace other conversations. that they might be having socially about where they ate. When you think about what gets rewarded, gets repeated, when a guest says, thank you, I always wondered about that. That type of compliment to the learning experience fosters a stylist to have that conversation again. When they receive another positive response, they do it again. And pretty soon, this becomes a habit in their conversation. Think about something else that's so simple. Every state, I think without exception, has guidelines about how to disinfect a brush properly. And this is often misunderstood, sometimes not done at all. In fact, with natural bristle brushes, you can't even comply because natural bristle brushes and wood brushes, you can't disinfect an organic material because they harbor bacteria. But no guest likes to see a hairy brush approach their face, especially if it has a color of hair that's different than their own. So it's a common sense practice, not only just state board compliance, that a stylist cleans their brushes with some frequency. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah.
So in one of our salons down in Atlanta, it's called Van Michael, a really popular salon, where we presented, we've trained over 225 of their team in the art of the blow dry, our ergonomic approach to finishing. This has been adopted for all of their new hires. Everyone who gets hired for their new talent salon goes through the art of the blow dry. And in that sequence, after the blow dry, a stylist would ask their guest, hey, Michelle, would you like to see how easy it is to clean an Ergo brush? They have to clean the brush anyway. So as part of their standard operating procedure at the end of the blow dry, they share with the guest how to use a towel to encompass the brush and pull the hair away. Once again, this is something a mother doesn't teach her daughter about how to clean her brush. And most people who own a round brush find it to be pretty grody, covered with a lot of hair. When this stylist presented to her guest, would you like to see how easy it is to clean an Ergo brush? The guest burst out laughing. I was wondering, what's going on here? And I heard in the conversation, the mother said, if I brought in my daughter, would you show her how to clean her brush? Simple information. Once again, if you make it part of a standard operating procedure, this is something that is presented to every guest. And the greatest challenge every owner has is in ensuring a consistent, excellent outcome. It's always made up of disciplines in a sequence.
Robert, we're going to wrap up here, and I'm going to give you a chance for some final words. You know, one other thing as I'm listening to you here is, another reason why to have this conversation with guests from a stylist standpoint, it's a hell of a lot easier to meet your average ticket and retail goals, another outlet. So, but this is a great conversation, and we're going to get to see you in Arizona, live and in color.
We are so excited. We're so excited. It is being amongst a group like this at the Phil. It is as invigorating as a pot of espresso coffee. So I'm looking forward to meeting all of the Phil attendees, receiving some inspiration myself. Every time we're around a group, it's an opportunity to learn. And I'm thankful for that. So thanks for the invitation to participate in the Phil.
Yeah, well, you're one of the good guys, as I like to say. You've got a long list of fans behind you, and a lot of people. You've got a lot of respect, and you're going strong. Your passion continues to be super high. I'm going to give a little bit of tease for those join us at the Phil. Robert and his team is doing something extremely generous at the Phil, and I will leave it at that. All right. So, Robert, I am going to officially award you a $1 million light bulb and welcome you to our Brain Trust. If I could please have, yes, Karen, we love Ergo. Karen Deanda loves Ergo. Leon Alexander's thrown in some notes. So let's give Robert a big virtual applause here. Let's give him some shout outs in the chat. And Robert, you're welcome to hang around. I've probably got a couple things before I wrap up today. One of the main things I like to do at this point in the conversation is, but let me pause a second. Robert, thanks again, okay?
My
Virtual
pleasure.
applause. Well done.
Thank you.
It's nice to have you in the Brain Trust, okay?
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's see who we got here. I know we have an amazing group today. We got Amy and Anna and Andre and Andrew and Ann and Ashley and Bijan's with us. Hello, Kathy. We need to talk soon. Hello, Cheyenne, Christine and Connie and Dawn and Heather and Holly and Jan and Jared and Joe and Jonathan and Karen and Carrie and Kate and Kevin and Leon and Liz and hello, Linnell. Good morning. You're up early too. Marie, hello, Megan Jasper. We can't wait to come to your state. Melissa, Mike, hey Mike, how are you? And Priscilla, Roberto, Roman, Sam, Sharon, Sue, Terry, Tracy, and Trent, some of our favorite members of our community, as usual, joins us today. So thank you for joining us. Let's see what else we got here for you. I am going to continue let me pull this up here. Okay. Welcome to the Brain Trust. All right, we'll see if the fill is right. Okay, and I'm certainly going to have some light bulb moments. One little final nudge here. I started out talking about this, and I'm going to talk about it again. Please, we'd love to have you participate in the compensation study. We made it as simple as possible. If you have not, let us know you'd like to participate. Please send a note to Michelle, otherwise email one of us and we'll get you going. We are going to be welcoming Robert, also as a member of the Brain Trust, on May 15th. If you haven't registered for the Phil, you should do so. Quick shout out to Pivot Point, who we are partnering with our money course for students. So we're already into with 13,000 students, and that number is going to grow. That means when they come into your businesses, they are going to be better prepared and hit the ground running and understand the economics of what it's like to work at a salon, understand that nothing happens without clients, and all sorts of other things that will help them become less stressful in their job and life because they have money skills to match their art and heart. So we hope you become a money school. If you are a school joining us today, you can book a demo at qnityforschools.com. Shout out to Lightheart Sanders, the CPAs. They also are a great sponsor of this roundtable and great collaborators with us. Closing thoughts: if you want to teach people a new way of thinking, don't bother trying to teach them. Instead, give them a tool, the use of which will lead to new ways of thinking. Hopefully you'll be joining us in Scottsdale to receive some of these new tools. We very much appreciate you spending your time with us today, and we appreciate Robert being with us. We are on next week. I'm pretty sure, Michelle, you might want to put a note in the chat there. And I'm not sure what, if any, days off we have coming up. Yes, we're on next week. Oh my gosh, we've got a really good guest next week too. A really cool guy. He's a major thought leader out there, and you have not heard of this person, but you're going to be really intrigued. This guy is a what do I say about him? His name is Kerry, and his last name is Obermeyer, and he is an author. He's a speaker. He also helps other people publish. And the guy's a real deal. He's got a huge heart, and he's agreed to join us next week. So join us next week. And we are 25 days away from the Phil, and we are working like mad to make sure it's an event that will be highly memorable, and you have a ton of light bulb moments, and you fill your bucket. All right, everybody, we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining us today. Take care.